Wall Street posts a three-day winning streak with the Dow Jones rising over 520 points. Asia mixed in early trade. The SGX Nifty indicates a weak start as the International Monetary Fund warns of negative growth rates, even worse than what was previously estimated. A potential breakthrough in the battle against coronavirus. Scientists in the UK say that they have found first evidence that a drug can improve chances of survival against the disease. Researchers say steroid Dexamethasone cuts the risk of death by 30% for patients on ventilators and 20% for those on oxygen. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says green shoots are visible after reopening of the economy. In his meeting with chief ministers to take stock of the COVID-19 crisis, PM Modi adds, the more we can stop the coronavirus, the more our economy will open up. The situation continues to remain tense at the actual line of control. The army, in a late-night statement, says the Indian and Chinese troops have disengaged, but 20 Indian soldiers have been killed in the violent clashes. Good morning, you're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. I'm Mangalam Malu. It is midweek and the cues are middling as well. On the one hand, we have some positive cues with regards to hope coming in form of cure of coronavirus. At the same time, some more money going into the US markets. But at the same time, the other end of the spectrum, we have cues like negative, worse than expected global growth rate. And at the same time, this fresh trouble brewing on the India-China border. So as a result of which, the big gains that we saw on Wall Street haven't translated into the Asian markets. The Asian markets, as we speak, trade mixed despite a strong handover, but a volatile handover coming in from Wall Street. The intraday range of Dow Jones yesterday was over 800 odd points. It ended 500 points higher, but that's not reflecting in the sort of moves that we're seeing in our market, in the Asian markets rather. The Nikkei, the Taiwanese index, the Kospi, all of them lower in trade. Barring Hang Seng, all the major Asian indices lower. As a result of which, the SGX Nifty also is indicating that the start could be on the obverse side with a 50-point cut to kickstart things. So let's talk about the US markets itself. We saw a third straight day of gain coming in for the Wall Street, with the Dow gaining over 520 points. The S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq also rallied almost 2% at close. The rally was supported by a historic jump of 17.7% in the retail sales for May. CNBC's Aditi Roy gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. stocks getting a boost today. The Dow adding 526 points, the S&P up 58, and the Nasdaq gaining 169. Retail sales surging nearly 18% in May from the previous month, the biggest monthly jump ever. That's much better than the 10% gain economists were forecasting. Clothing and accessory stores posting the biggest rise, with sales up more than 180% for the month. Meantime, home builder sentiment also posting its biggest monthly surge ever in June, signaling that home buyer demand is turning around faster than expected. The move comes after mortgage applications for new homes jumped nearly 11% last month. And McDonald's saying that global same-store sales fell nearly 30% quarter to date as of May 31st. The silver lining, things appear to be getting better for the fast food giant. U.S. same-store sales falling just 5% in May, and sales across its business segments improved from April. Another sign that the economy continues to improve as quarantine measures are. And that's the action from the U.S. markets. Now back to you in Mumbai.
All right, with that, we take stock of what took place in the European markets. Well, out there, they mirrored the sort of gains that we saw on Wall Street, ended the day with strong gains as investors reacted to the US Federal Reserve's latest announcement of buying corporate bonds. Additionally, also news of a new life-saving coronavirus drug further boosted risk appetite, as a result of which we saw the big moves that we did across the European indices, around 3.5 odd percent. But even as the total number of COVID-19 affected cases cross the 82.5 lakh mark globally, economies across the world are reopening. But the re-emergence of fresh coronavirus cases in Beijing over the weekend has added to further uncertainty to recovery. In fact, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF as we know it, has warned of negative growth rates, even worse than what it had previously estimated. In a blog post, the chief economist Geeta Gopinath said that the current crisis is unlike anything that the world has seen before, And she wrote that although many countries began to ease containment policies and gradually permit the resumption of economic activity, there remains profound uncertainty about the path of recovery. And finally, it could be the biggest COVID breakthrough yet. Scientists in the United Kingdom say they've found first evidence that a drug can actually improve chances of survival against the disease. This drug is called Dexamethasone, and several Indian companies, including many of them, manufacture it. Archana Shukla is here with the findings of this British study and its implications. Archana, good news at last?
This is one of the first clinical trial evidence on dexamethasone. It's a corticosteroid used to treat inflammation like rheumatoid arthritis and in some forms of cancer also. And this is the first evidence from a properly designed clinical trial that shows evidence that this drug, and it could be the first drug to reduce mortality in severely hospitalized COVID-19 patients. What the data tells us for now, what has been released by the University of Oxford, is that on patients on ventilatory support, the reduction in mortality has been seen by almost a third. It has reduced from 41% down to 28%. And those patients who were on oxygen support, there has been a reduction in death by the use of dexamethasone by about a fifth. So about 20% patients on oxygen support saw better survival rates versus those who were put on standard care. So this is the first set of clinical trial evidence, and hence it's a strong evidence. However, I would just like to caveat that this still has to go through scientific scrutiny of various scientific scrutiny before this can be used worldwide. However, UK particularly, as one country, has already started stockpiling this drug. Like you pointed out, it's a low-cost drug. It's a generic drug that's manufactured across the world. India is one of the large manufacturers of this drug. Zydus Cadila particularly is one of the largest manufacturers. And in India, the domestic market is around 104 crore rupees for this drug, which is used as a hormone therapy drug, as well as has certain usage as an ophthalmic drug as well. And it is both available as a tablet and as an injectable. Apart from Zydus Cadila, Cadila Healthcare and Wokhard are other two manufacturers. India also exports this drug. However, just as of yet, we don't have the exact data on how much it is exported.
All right, Archana, thanks a lot for that. Zydus, Wokhard as well as Cadila are the stocks we will watch out for our markets and hope that this drug finally is the one that works. But let's also listen into Martin Landry, who co-led the study that found that this drug was effective. Let's see what he has to say.
We've all, of course, been looking for a treatment that actually has a big impact on the risk of dying. And today we've announced the results of a trial which shows a treatment that reduces the risk of dying for patients who are on ventilators, reduces that risk by a third. And that's the first crack that we've seen, the first time we've seen a drug that will actually improve survival in patients with COVID. So that's a significant step forward. The way it works, we think, is that it dampens down the inflammatory response, the immune system, if you like. And early on in the disease, you need your immune system to deal with the virus. And that's how many patients, most of us, will then recover. But for the sickest patients, that immune response almost turns against the body, turns against the lungs, causes lung damage. That's what leads to people needing to have ventilation. That's what leads to people dying. And dexamethasone dampens that. And the results are quite clear. In patients on ventilation, we see this big reduction in the risk. In patients on oxygen, we see this reduction in the risk. But in other patients, we do not see any reduction. So this is a treatment for patients in hospital with coronavirus on ventilators or oxygen. We need vaccines to prevent anybody getting the disease, prevent everybody getting the disease. But of course, they're still a way off. There's lots of excitement about the development of vaccines. But remember that vaccines are at the most effective when you actually manage to inject them into the arms of millions or possibly even billions of people. And that's a big scale problem. And in the meantime, we do need drugs. We need treatments for the patients who've got coronavirus, who've got COVID, who are in hospital, who are in ventilators today, tomorrow, next week and next month around the world.
All right, with that, let's move on. The situation across the actual line of control, or rather line of actual control, continues to remain tense, and now it has confirmed that 20 Indian soldiers were killed in violent clashes which broke out between the Indian and Chinese troops on June 15th. Let's go over to Parikshit for the details. Good morning, Parikshit.
Well, the situation does seem rather tense and bad in the Galwan region. We can now confirm, and this is coming from the Indian Army, that 20 Indian soldiers have died, 17 more have succumbed to their injuries, and their condition was worsened by the harsh temperatures in Ladakh. We're told that both sides are talking. Major general level talks have taken place. Even yesterday, there were high-level meetings. There was a high-level security meeting at the Prime Minister's office last night. You had the External Affairs Minister, the Chief of Defence Staff, the Defence Minister, and also the Home Minister who attended that meeting. The Congress President had said that India's political fraternity stands united. The BJP also backing the government, saying that we have the political will and the wherewithal to tackle any adversary.
All right, this is something we will keep an eye out on, Parikshit. But we also understand that the United States has reacted to the border standoff. What are you picking up out there?
Well, this seems to be a very important input that is coming in. The United States and India have been in touch. India has been briefing the United States ever since the clashes broke out first in eastern Ladakh and Sikkim on the 5th and 9th of May. We can tell our viewers that the State Department has said that they want a peaceful resolution to the border dispute. They're saying that both sides have disengaged, so the U.S. government has noted that there has been disengagement in the Galwan region. They also condoled the loss of lives. They've also said that they continue to watch the situation very closely. They did not comment on any recent deliberation between India and the United States over the last 24 hours, but they said that Prime Minister Modi took up the issue with the U.S. President on the 2nd of June.
All right, Parikshit, thanks a lot for that. So we will continue to monitor this situation as it develops. But like Parikshit said, that now talks are taking place and the situation still remains tense. With that, we'll step into a short break, come back, focus on our markets, all the cues and news you need to know for trade this morning.